Hi, my name is Piper Jackson, and throughout this course, I've had the opportunity to make meaningful changes in the environment for the children that I work with. And I'm really excited to show you what the O'Malley family and I have been up to recently. I chose to focus my project around children's lively minds. This topic piqued my interest as I read through chapter 4 of The Art of Awareness. And a few days before reading that chapter, I was outside playing with Ellis and we were blowing bubbles. And instead of chasing them like I thought he would, he just sat and watched them blow away in the wind. And when one popped, he turned and asked me, I wonder where they go when they leave. And this pondering felt rather poetic, and I was left with a lasting impression on the lively minds of children. With my focus set, the question that guided the family and I through this project was how can we redesign the family's room to make it a purposeful space that is engaging to the children's lively minds? The children in question are Finn, Leela, and Ellis. This story started about a month into the semester while I was working as a community support worker for Leela. She has a diagnosis of HADS, which is a rare genetic condition, and autism. And most of my time spent with Leela has been in her family home, and in the last 9 months, I've gotten to know the parents and other children very well. I began sharing some of the things I was learning throughout my education with the family, and as I was telling the mom more about this course in particular, she told me she had a book she wanted to show me. She couldn't find it that day, but the next day when she brought it out, she started flipping through the pages and telling me that she really wanted to do these things in the family room. She just didn't even know where to start. I was happy to see a familiar title and some familiar authors, and I told her that I was actually reading the second edition of this book for this course, and I offered to help make some changes in the family room, and she jumped on that. My process for this project was to first complete an initial observation of the environment and how the children interacted in it. I then shared my findings with the family and we brainstormed some ideas. And then we rearranged the environment to make it more congruent with the family's needs. And then we designed the environment to make it more engaging to the children. And then finally, I observed the children once more to determine if the changes I had made were impactful. And the best part about this process is that it never has to end. It feels like people naturally know how to move furniture across a room thanks to our trajectory schema. So instead of describing the process of moving the objects, I wanted to explain my experience with rearranging. It was arguably the most stressful and time-consuming part of the process, and it took me about 2 hours to move and rearrange everything. Fortunately, we already had all the supplies that we needed for this phase, and the one thing that we didn't quite have an idea for yet was the computer desk. And it became a we'll cross that bridge when we get there situation. And with that, we began the hectic and messy and overwhelming process of moving everything. I felt like I had come into someone's home and destroyed any semblance of order that possibly existed. I kept thinking to myself, what have I done? As it kept getting worse before it got better. And I did not document any of this initial process because I was working on a rush time frame and I just kept thinking, I hope they like it. And I became hyper aware of the mess I had made in their home and what the mom might have been thinking in that moment. I knew that the undoing was part of the doing process, but I still felt the need to reassure her about a dozen times that it could all be moved back if she didn't like it. And I think I was reassuring myself more than her. She told me that she fully trusted me to make this happen, and after that, I became a little more confident in myself. And when it got time to moving the desk around, we found a spot in the front room that had a desk, a shelf that was the exact shape, and we were able to just seamlessly swap those two out. Finn was very excited to have a quieter spot to do her school, and the reason I shared this less than glamorous part of the process with you is because I wanted to show you that it all worked out and everything fell into place. We beat the clock, and by the end of our time frame, I was proud, the mom was very pleased, and the kids loved it. This was only the first phase of making meaningful changes in the environment, and I knew that we were moving in the right direction when I got this heartfelt text from the mom later that evening. And now that the environment had space for the children to engage in activities, we were able to move on to phase two, where we created decorations and provocations for the space to make it engaging. This phase took place over the course of a week, and together we worked on creating a hanging decoration. And with the help of the kids, we found a bunch of letter beads to make each one of them their own pipe cleaner with their name on it to contribute to a sense of belonging in this newly transformed space. Ellis showed an intense interest in using the pliers during this activity, and I really loved seeing how each strand reflected each child's unique personality. The next day, Ellis asked if we could do more beads, so I brought the supplies back out to the new art table. Before he could get to work, he paused and he told me he needed the grabbers to twist the really strong wire. So once I retrieved the pliers, he got to work. With some time to study the tool, he asked me how they opened, and I realized that he might be generalizing his time with scissors to his use of the pliers. And he demonstrated to me while explaining that every time he opened his hand, they fell out. I explained that they worked a little differently than scissors, and he watched me use the pliers a few times and went back to trying himself. He explained that the tool was too big for him to hold like I was, but that he could hold it with two hands. And he asked me to hold the wire still while he clamped down on it, and then he moved to holding the tool with one hand and twisting the wire with the other. Ellis was really proud of the decoration we made, and he helped me pick out the perfect spot to hang it up right above the art table. The areas of the room that I wanted to design were the music shelf, building area, reading nook, and art wall. And I began working on the music shelf, and I really enjoyed arranging the instruments in a way that was inviting. And when I finished, Finn came by and said, I didn't even know we had all these. And when I was looking for tape, I happened to find this perfect little mirror tucked in the back of the art closet, and I think it's the perfect addition. As I created the construction provocation in the building center, I was reminded of my first attempt at producing a provocation, which failed miserably, as Alice showed absolutely no interest in it. But that failure was very helpful in showing me what a provocation shouldn't look like, and I felt much more confident in the success of this provocation as it focused on Alice's favorite thing, construction. And I wanted to incorporate literature, tools, and pretend play. So I found a book on heavy equipment that looked just like his toys. And at the thrift store, I found this hard hat, calculator, and road sign book. And then I also provided him with a notepad to document his creations. And to incorporate natural light and a sense of wonder into the space, I used some stained glass window cling that I had left over. And Leela loved the rainbows. She used the iridescent backdrop as a stage for her shadow puppet performances. And Finn helped me create a cozy reading nook out of the egg chair. And the O'Malley Art Gallery has quickly grown, and we are ready to expand. I have had many opportunities to observe the children interacting in this new space, and I'm going to share three instances that stuck out to me. Ellis needed no instruction when he found his construction provocation, and he quickly got to work on an apartment building, demonstrating his knowledge on how buildings are made. Leela was excitedly experimenting with a ramp we had made earlier, and I was excited to see that this because she normally just likes to topple blocks over, and anything I try to make doesn't get very far. And I was excited to see how she explored this ramp differently and watched the vehicles go down. When it came time for dinner, she told everyone, do not knock our ramp over. And I thought that was really cool because it was such a stark contrast of what she normally does. And then in the third photo, that took place later that same evening when Leela was drawn to the bright bells that I had displayed in the music shelf. She rang each of them individually and then arranged them into two groups of the ones she liked and the ones she didn't like. And reflecting back on this moment, I'm wondering if those two bells were flat or had some inconsistency in tune. With her sensory sensitivities, I wonder if she heard something that I didn't. And the biggest barrier that we encountered in this project was finding time to complete this large change. Most days didn't provide the time or opportunity to complete phase one. And to work around this, I came over when the outside of my regular hours, when all the kids were accounted for, and I could just focus on rearranging. Something that I hadn't really considered till it was staring me in the face was how many books the parents had under the TV on that shelf. And there was also other things on that shelf that I just didn't really feel like moving around, so we just let that lie where it was. A barrier that I ran into when designing this environment was the parents' concern over providing the children with free access to art materials like paints, markers, and scissors. And I did not want to push them to include anything that they were uncomfortable with. And I understood that this place lacked constant supervision. So my solution was to give them a jumping off point of crayons and coloring books. And we reasoned that the parents could bring out art supplies when they could actively supervise. A problem we did run into was the dad accidentally throwing away some of the branches that the children had collected earlier that year for the space. He didn't know what they were being used for, and by the time we realized the situation, the rain had rolled in and any prospective branches were soggy. Um, Finishing the reading nook with those branches will have to be postponed until summertime, and this predicament was completely preventable, and it taught me a valuable lesson in communicating with all the members who are present for the process, even if they're not often involved. As a result of designing the space for the O'Malley family, I've seen how making meaningful changes in the environment through purposeful arrangement and design engaged the children's lively minds. Changing the family room alone has promoted a positive shift in the overall mood of the entire home. The area is no longer a place of conflict for the children as they have space to move freely and engage in their own activities. This project has demonstrated to me how the environment acts as a third teacher. By decentering the couch and creating purposeful spaces, I watched as the children's use of the room changed. A key takeaway after completing this project is to appreciate the impact that the environment has on children's behavior and how that can either hinder or enhance their learning. And something throughout this process that I wanted to share with others that might be doing something similar is that there was a lot of hesitation on my part and a lack of urgency on the moms. And this led me to do a lot of over planning and waiting for the perfect moment and looking for the perfect items. And it almost felt like I was waiting for the planets to align. So my advice for a project like this is that if you're going to sit around and wait for perfect to come, nothing will ever change. And you don't need a big budget to create meaningful changes in your own space. We spent less than $5 at the thrift store for this project, and the rest we just used our creativity and what we already had. And as a result of this project, the family room is now a purposeful space where the family can spend quality time and the children can keep their lively minds engaged. After completing this project, I'm left wondering what will come of the space as the children grow up and their interests change. And some future provocations that I would like to complete for the children are a shadow puppet theater, some additional art opportunities, maybe outside during the summertime. And I really want to bring a sense of magic and wonder to the reading corner. This is our inspiration photo. And then my whole intention with this project was to create a space where the mom felt like she could add on to. And now she has a space where she can bring her own inspiration from Curtis and Carter's designs of living and learning to life. And thank you for watching my presentation, and I hope you were able to take away something valuable from this experience like I have.